The NFL draft is coming up next week, and the rumor mill keeps on churning. And now we found out this week that the Chargers have officially met with the two top wide receivers in this draft class.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons together, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, I think it's good news that the Chargers have met with the top 2 wide receivers in the class. I think it just means that they're taking it seriously, that if one of those guys are available, whether it is Tetairoa McMillan or Matthew Golden, that they might take and pull the trigger on bringing one of those guys in. And then we're going to talk about some second round guys, including Jayden Higgins, who is a guy I really liked, bigger body type wide receiver, and Jalen Royals, who also had some aspects of his game that I think will definitely translate to the next level, while we finish things up with Dane Brugler's 7-round Chargers mock draft, 10 picks going over all of them.
Yeah, and I liked what he was able to do. I think you always realize that there's no way to address every long-term need for this team, but I think he did a very admirable job. So I'm excited to get into it. But today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. David, now with the reports we've seen this week, we know that the Chargers have met with both of the top receiving options in this class, excluding Travis Hunter from that conversation, obviously, because he's a different kind of player. Hard to know what you should classify him as. But as far as the guys the Chargers have a chance at, these are easily the top 2 guys. And Jordan Schultz earlier in the week reported, sources say Arizona wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan has visited with the Cowboys, Raiders, Chargers, Patriots, Browns, Seahawks, Panthers, and Saints. I'm told he has 3 more visits lined up as well. One executive from a 2024 playoff team said he's got true star level tools and elite production. Our entire building loves him. There's just no way he makes it to us. Was it the Chargers? I mean, I don't know. But the Chargers said that he's a weird guy because you don't know kind of where he's going to go. He has a wide range of outcomes in round 1. He's a polarizing player. And then we saw later in the week from Aaron Wilson, he reported that Matthew Golden was visiting with the Chargers as well. So now we know, David, because the Chargers would have to get these guys at 22 or trade up to get these guys, that there's at least some interest level. Now, it is rumor season. It could be nothing. It could be smoke. But I don't think it's bad news to see, hey, the Chargers, at least with that 22nd overall pick, they're meeting with these top receivers. So maybe they are potentially going to go in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I love the idea of talking to a couple of the top wide receivers in the class for a couple of reasons. One, you want to make sure and get an understanding of their makeup, see who they are as a person, try to, at least get an idea of their competency and their aptitude to be able to show you, what's going on the football field and be able to illustrate that, right? I think that's important too. But also, like, this is like a fact-finding mission as well, because there's a good chance that these guys won't be available, but you got an opportunity to get some intimate knowledge directly from that player. So that way you will have to, be able to game plan for them. You'll have information to be able to do that with. So I think, that's part of these visits too, is trying to get to know these players, both as an opportunity to see if they'll join your football team, but also if you're going to have to play against them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that you never know the true motives behind these meetings unless it's somebody with obvious medical concerns where it's just like, okay, you want your doctors to get in and take their own look at it. Because that's usually what a lot of this is you getting your own team doctors to check this person out, to clear them physically, and, to maybe shore up some issues that you might have or some long-term question marks you could have about their health. Now, both these guys could be gone at 22. Both these guys could be available at 22. But Tetairoa McMillan, outside of Travis Hunter, is pretty widely regarded as the number 1 wide receiver. Yet, kind of midway through the pre-draft process, he seemed to be sliding a little bit, and to a point where a lot of, or at least several Chargers mock drafts that happen had him going to the Chargers at 22. And it's easy to see why. I mean, he would be that guy that you would most prototypically see outside with Ladd McConkey in the middle that you'd be like, okay, well, that's a match made in heaven. I mean, you're talking 6'4", 219 pounds, 10-inch hands, and a guy that was a great red zone threat, 26 touchdowns in 3 seasons. He had 8 or more in every season, and the only receiver in the NCAA with back-to-back 1,300-yard receiving yard seasons. This is a guy that has production. He has size. He has the testing. And when you're talking about what the Chargers need, it would be easy to see why, hey, if that guy ends up falling to 22, they could be like, wow, this is a match made in heaven.
For sure. I mean, you already saw what Mike Williams and Justin Herbert were able to do, right? And with Tetairoa McMillan, he is a big body wide receiver, much in that same kind of mold. Gigantic frame, plays strong, and plays like a big wide receiver as well. He has the size and strength to be an impact blocker as well, which you know is going to be something that he's going to have to do in a Greg Roman offense. And, you know, hey, you mentioned it, like the premium production, it's real. It's been there. Also like the fact that he's able to kind of box out, defenders and kind of keep them away from the play. And, you know, it was a little bit underrated as far as making people miss. He had 29 missed tackles forced, which was tied for third. So,
that's crazy.
It's pretty easy to see what his application would be to the offense, both in the short term and the long term.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, if he was a top 10 pick, I think you'd have some legitimate, kind of concerns there. It's like, okay, is he going to be that kind of guy? But as far as kind of a 1A, 1B situation with Ladd McConkey, you'd sign me up right now and I'd be stoked with it. But
yeah,
there's another guy that's been pretty polarizing and another guy that absolutely will go in the first round, and that's Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden, who very different physical profile at 5'11", 191. But David, I know this was a guy you really, really liked when you turned on the tape.
I mean, juice, man. It's just straight juice. This guy has absolute, just juice in the legs. He is a difference maker. Elite change of direction. Remember, he caught a pass against Arizona State where he was able to put his foot in the ground and just take off and add another 40 yards to his game. Came in clutch too. Also, has really good physical hands. Was able to keep the hands on the football through contact. Does a great job of getting up and getting the football at the highest point, even though he's a little bit smaller. I just really love the way he runs his routes. He's really able to snap off his routes and create separation with his routes. Like, this is a guy I feel like would add some explosion to your offense that I don't really know that you have outside of Ladd McConkey, of course.
It's just very different, a different kind of explosiveness than Ladd McConkey has, because this is a guy that plays, I think, much bigger than he is. I think he plays like a much bigger receiver than 5'11" would tell you if you were just looking at the box score kind of thing. But I do think what really separates him is just kind of his subtle ability to create separation down the field once the ball is in the air, using his body with great body control to be able to spin, to be able to hold off defenders with a shoulder and do what he needs to do to make a big catch down the field. I think the hard thing with him is obviously just really 1 year of production.
Yeah.
And a lot of that came in the biggest games of the season, which is a blessing and a curse, because it's like, okay, well, you're doing this against great teams, so we know you can do it, but where was that the rest of the year?
Yeah.
And I think that's, where you get into the Quinn Ewers question and how many times you saw great body control because he's slowing down to go turn around to get a football. But I do think that, as the fastest wide receiver in the draft class at a 4.29, he doesn't have some of those same concerns you would have against, with the guys that run 4.2, with, all the famous examples that we've seen of guys that run in the 4.2s and don't work out. He's not really that kind of receiver that just won with his speed. And honestly, when I watch the game tape, I think his game speed is probably a little slower than 4.29, which is absolutely blazing. But like I said, biggest stages, he came through. 8 for 162 yards against Georgia. He had 7 catches for 149 yards and a touchdown against Arizona State. Both of those games being, both those huge, gigantic games, and also averaged 17 yards per catch in 2024 to show you kind of the big playability that he brings to the table. So a lot that I like. I'm probably higher on Tetairoa McMillan, and you're probably a little higher on Matthew Golden. I'd understand both of them, and I think at 22, you could absolutely argue the value and say, hey, this is the best player that's available here. So it's nice to see the Chargers doing their due diligence and potentially having that as an option that's on the table, giving Justin Herbert another legitimate pass catcher is one of our top priorities. Both of those guys would check that box for me. But we still have more to get into because there is a good chance still, because we're talking about the Chargers, that they don't draft a wide receiver in round 1, but they did draft a great one in round 2, and maybe that's where they target the position again this year, because there are some really good players there, including Jayden Higgins and Jalen Royal. So we're going to talk about a couple new receivers we haven't broken down yet, and 2 guys I like a lot, and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Gametime, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. I've gone to some big events. I've never gone to an event I wanted to go to, whether it's sports or music, comedy, theater, whatever the case is, and Gametime not had a ticket for it. Gametime being sold. I've never seen it. And the other great thing about Gametime is you get all-in pricing. So when you're looking at those tickets, you know exactly the number that you're going to see at checkout, and you get the Gametime guarantee knowing that you're going to get the best price. If you're going to do something you know you want to remember forever, make sure you're getting the tickets from the right place, and that's why I use Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, David, well, we talked about the guys the Chargers have met up with, but now we're going to talk about a couple of guys that they could target in the second round if they decide to go in a different direction in round 1, and we saw them do that last year when they took Joe Alt instead of someone like a Malik Neighbors, and then in the second round they traded up to go get Ladd McConkey, and I think in this draft where I think there's big question marks about whether there's a superstar receiver, whether they're kind of a no doubt about it type of receiver, it does feel like there is a lot of talent out there, and maybe some of that, even though it's not as for sure, leads to some more guys being available in round 2 that can make an impact early on, including the guys we're going to talk about today. Starting with Jayden Higgins. This is a guy I've seen a lot of Chargers fans bring up, as far as the guy the Chargers could go get in the second round if they decide to wait until then to go find that wide receiver to help this roster. And it's probably a little rich as far as him being available to the Chargers at 55. Dane Brugler has him as his 45th ranked prospect, so you'd have to slide a little bit based on that. But this is a guy, David, when you're talking about just a physical profile, what you would imagine you'd want to see as kind of a running mate for Ladd McConkey, this guy is that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the big guy on the outside. That's what Jayden Higgins is from Iowa, 6'4", 214 pounds. So he has that size that you want. Big body wide receiver. Also, he's a big body wide receiver that actually plays like a big body wide receiver. He does a great job of using his body to shelter defenders, to be able to box them out, to be able to, go grab the football. Felt like he had really good body control too. I saw him kind of have to contort his body a couple times to make a couple of catches, which for a man that size, that's definitely not, very normal. I would say that. Also a good contested catch wide receiver. He, he had a couple of instances I watched on tape where he was able to go up and get the ball at its highest point. Had really good ball tracking as well, according to Dane Brugler. 0 drops, 117 targets of 10 yards or more at Iowa State. So that is fantastic. And also, the guy that was there every day, played in 26 straight games at Iowa State, did not miss a single game due to injury.
Yeah, and that's one of the things this regime specifically is going to value a lot, right? Just the ability to stay on the field, the durability, and we saw that with the free agent signings that they had. Iowa State, not Iowa, just to clean that part up. And Iowa State had 2 really good receivers, and both of them could be second-round picks when you're talking about Jalen Noel as well. But we went with the guy out of those 2 guys, one that's, considered, at least by Dane Brugler's measure, going to go a little bit later, but also the guy that felt like it fit better with what the Chargers currently have. This guy, to me, I think what surprised me was seeing the speed, like to see, a guy that's this size run a 4.47 40, that's going to play all the time.
That's impressive.
You talked about the 10+ yard catches or, targets downfield. He did have 3 drops over the last 2 seasons, none of them coming from 10+ yards, which shows you it's more of a concentration thing. Him trying to get quick passes and maybe looking upfield a little bit too early. I do think that for him, flashes of being a very good blocker, has the ability to do that. Solid 58% contested catch rate to kind of go towards what you were saying. Physical at the top of the route. And also, really good testing. 9.6 RAS score, 93rd percentile on vertical and broad jump. Obviously ran the good 40. I think he's also after the catch a little underrated too, because I think if he's at full speed at that size, he can become pretty hard to bring down. And he did show the versatility to kind of be outside or in the slot and be effective from both those spots. Now, I will say that he runs routes like a big receiver at times. I think he shows the ability to run routes better, but he's a little bit lumbering at times at that size. The body catches are something I'm always going to hate. Like the times,
Yeah.
I mean, a couple times I'm watching him jump to catch a ball with his chest. And I mean, that's always going to drive me a little bit crazy. Build up speed guy, not elite burst. Might be suited best as a big slot instead of, you know, a guy that's going to beat people deep all the time. It'd be interesting to see, but there's a lot to like about Jayden Higgins. And I think at that profile, right, to think, hey, if I can just get him to get off press coverage a little bit better and use that physicality to do that and be an outside guy that has the versatility to move around, I totally understand it. I get why people like this guy, you know, at that size, big long arms, big catch radius when he decides to use those arms. I liked him a lot. And will he get to the Chargers at 55? It's hard to say. But I also like the other guy a lot, too, that we're going to talk about with Utah State wide receiver Jalen Royals. 6 foot, 205 pounds, so not quite as small as Lad McConkey, and those are combine measurements, so you know they're good. This is a juice guy, too. I mean, stacks DBs quickly to get on top of them. Great job tracking the football down the field and making adjustments. A good yak threat with nice open field vision. 17 missed tackles forced in only 7 games last year. I thought was pretty impressive. And this, if you want to talk about impressive, David, this is the guy that had 21 touchdowns over his past 20 games. That is something that definitely will play.
Yeah, my goodness. Touchdown machine there, huh? Yeah, in 2023, he had 71 receptions, 1,080 yards, and 15 touchdowns. And then in 2024, 55 receptions, 834 yards, and 6 touchdowns, while missing the final 5 games with a right foot injury. But yeah, hey, 4.42 speed, so legit speed there. He was throwing a lot of bubble screens, and he was able to kind of produce with those almost every time. Looks like he was getting 7 to 8 yards almost every time he was getting those opportunities. Felt like he showed a variety of different release packages as well that kind of allowed him to create separation right off the line of scrimmage. Feel like he had very good burst and acceleration, did a really good job of tracking the football over his shoulder. As far as a couple of things that I didn't see, or maybe some opportunities, didn't run the most diverse route tree, which he wasn't really asked to. And then per Dane Brugler, he had 3 of his drops while basically he was trying to secure the football while, you know, looking downfield. So one of those things where you got to,
same thing we just talked about with Jayden Higgins. Yeah,
exactly. Catch the ball and then move forward. And then of course, you know, the injury, he missed the final 5 games of his senior season with a torn deltoid in his right foot. So got to make sure that the medicals check out. But from an explosion standpoint, like, he absolutely brings that to the table.
Yeah, he has juice. I mean, back-to-back seasons averaging over 15 yards per catch. Obviously, you know, if you're doing that and catching as many screen passes he's doing, you bring a lot after the catch as well. Yeah. Averaged 119 yards per game last season. So even though that season got cut short, he made the most of that. But yeah, for me, can get caught up and slowed with physical corners as a guy who's pretty thin, you know, even at 6 foot, 205 pounds. It's something he has to get better at. I don't worry about it as much because he's pretty good off the line of scrimmage, and I think he has the quickness to make it work at the next level when he has to. Several times I watched him get out physicaled while on the outside playing on the boundary. If you get pushed out of bounds, I mean, your play can be over, right? Yeah. So like you have to be able to be physical enough to get the outside leverage that you need and get down the field to make big plays. Times where I felt like he took a play off. I don't say that often. I reserve that for when I know I'm seeing it, right? And that was something I saw, you know, not always selling, you know, passing plays when it's a running play, not kind of the deceitful part of that there where it's just like, hey, go all out. Even when you know the ball is not coming to you. Couple plays where, you know, everyone takes maybe a play off, you know, here or there. There was a few plays I noticed where it's like, okay, that doesn't seem totally engaged. And to your point, you know, wasn't asked to run the full route tree. Could have had sharper routes, but I think he probably has that in him. So 2 guys I feel good about. If the Chargers were to go that direction in round 2, then I think could make an impact for you in 2025 and beyond, obviously. And getting, you know, obviously cheaper weapons for your expensive quarterback works. Getting some more juice to the offense works. You know, I think Jalen Royals brings more of the juice. I think Jayden Higgins in this instance is a guy that brings you that prototypical outside type of receiver, you know, that you can get those things out of that maybe you're not getting with a Lad McConkey, and someone that can win those one-on-one matchups when teams want to play man coverage against you. very hard to play man coverage against either of these guys without them making you have to pay for it. But Dane Brugler from The Athletic came out with his full 7-round mock draft for the season. If you've read The Beast, you know how much this dude is putting into each draft. Nobody has more on the draft than this guy, and he's doing that,
Serious work.
And we wanted to go over, okay, all 10 of the Chargers picks, including a couple guys in rounds 1 and 2 that you've heard us talk about. You can't fill everything, but I think he did a really good job. So we're getting into Dane Brugler's 2025 7-round mock draft and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do, and that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. And that is really what sets LinkedIn apart, is just the quality of candidates that's going to get you. Not only is it going to do it super quickly and you can stop having to stress about having to fill that role, but you're also filling that role with someone that you feel like could last and be a good fit in your ecosystem. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, David. Well, I wanted to get into someone who we really respect their draft expertise, getting into their 7-round mock draft and who they decided to go with for the Chargers. So we're going to talk about all 10 of Dane Brugler's Chargers draft picks that he picked for them. But thank you to all the everydayers, as always, for making us your first listen. Tomorrow is Fan Mail Friday, so if you want to get your opinion or question on the show, just question. Your opinions we get all the time. Anyways, your question on the show, you can do that on Twitter at LockedOnLAC, on Instagram at LockedOnChargers, or call in and give us a 30-second voicemail at 323-524-7924. If you need a second listen and you want to get hyped up about this draft class, make sure to check out the Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts from, with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez keeping you up to date with all of the latest draft news. But we love Dane Brugler. We love the Beast. If there's, red flags you haven't heard about, if there's testing you can't find, if there's an anecdote that you've never heard, Dane Brugler will have it in the Beast, which is on The Athletic, 100% worth the price of admission there. And he came out with a 7-round mock draft, and he's very plugged in on what teams need as a guy who does this all the time and has to keep up with all of the teams on a national level. And you can tell when you see what he did for the Chargers draft. But the nice thing is he went through the 7 rounds, right? So it's not just guys he think could be there. It's guys that when he went through it were available to him. And I think that changes things a little bit. And that's why I think he did a really good job with what he gave the Chargers. So the first 2 rounds are going to be so important. You have 2 picks in the top 55. And it feels like you got to hit on both of them if you're going to make kind of a leap going into 2025. In the first 2 rounds, he comes away with Kenneth Grant, a guy we talked about, defensive tackle from Michigan, and Miami tight end Elijah Arroyo. Right off the bat, David hitting 2 of the major needs in the first 2 rounds. And with the guys that were available in one, I don't mind the Kenneth Grant pick. Both the tight ends were gone. Both of the top wide receivers were gone that we just talked about earlier in the show. Derek Harmon's gone. Gray Zabel's gone. The only guy, Will Johnson, went with the next pick. Obviously not as much of a position of need. But I really like the way it shaped out, and I think with those first 2 picks, I'm glad he's hitting those positions.
Yeah, I took a look at who was available in that as well and where these guys went. The only other player that you can kind of think about is Will Johnson, but you really truly understand the Kenneth Grant pick. I mean, this is a guy who, with the Michigan connection, played very well in the Jesse Minter defense. Also, like, this guy's got real size and legit power. Like, he can absolutely move people out of the way, and he can occupy double team blocks. He's a difference maker as a run stuffer. Probably want to see a little bit more as a pass rusher, and hopefully that can be developed a little bit over time. But with Mike Elston, I think we like what he was able to do, with Puna Ford and Tierra Tart and, the guys he had on the defensive line last year. So I trust his ability to extract that out of Kenneth Grant. And then, of course, with Elijah Arroyo, I'm already a big fan. When we talked about him, he's explosive. He can attack the seam. He's a playmaking, pass-catching tight end, and a guy I felt like was a little bit underrated as a blocker as well. And I think that you don't have to feel compelled to take him off the field because of that. So I like the first 2 picks. They make a ton of sense, and I would be happy with them.
Yeah, especially with how the draft fell. And there is a chance that the draft falls like this, and a lot of the guys you have pegged at 22 for the Chargers just aren't there. And you have to take a guy that we like in Kenneth Grant. And I don't. It is the pass rush upside is the part that I question. I think that at the very least he'll be able to be a guy that gets solid push, can push the pocket, collapse the pocket a little bit, and help you in that way. But you're getting an immovable object in the middle of that defensive line for several years, which is something we've wanted for a while. Elijah Arroyo, I like him more than I like a guy that everyone keeps seeming to put to the Chargers, Mason Taylor. I like Elijah Arroyo more out of those 2 guys. But Mason Taylor, Darius Alexander, Jayden Higgins, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins were all gone at this point. Trey Harris, Jalen Royals, 2 guys I'd like there. But I like the pick of Elijah Arroyo. Highest yards per catch of any FBS tight end last season. Love getting the explosive option in the tight end room. The reason the Chargers might not do it, injury history. This was his only big season. He's had some injuries as well. So in rounds 3 and 4, what I like about Dane Brugler's 7-round mock draft is after getting kind of that foundational defensive piece in the first round, he's doubling and tripling down on playmakers for this offense. In round 3, he went with Torrey Horton, the wide receiver from Colorado State. And in round 4, he went with a guy that's another kind of trendy pick to the Chargers if they wait on running back. Pick 125, Basil Tootin from Virginia Tech. Smaller running back with home run hitting ability. And David, round 2, round 3, round 4, it was clear where Dane Brugler wanted to go, and that is, I'm going to give Justin Herbert some weapons, even if I have to take offense 3 rounds in a row, and these guys definitely would qualify as weapons.
So Dane Brugler saw the Houston game and said, my goodness, I need to give Justin Herbert some help.
But he didn't see the interior of the offensive line.
Lad McConkey, yeah. He didn't pay attention to that. He said, hey, they got Mekhi Becton. Everything's good there. No problem. We got to get Justin Herbert some help. So, yeah, getting these guys like Torrey Horton, who has good size, 6'3", 385 pounds, back-to-back 1,100 receiving yard, 8 touchdown seasons before 2024, where he had some injury issues. He only played 5 games. But he's a little bit of a smaller, slender guy, has kind of average top speed, but is a guy who's a good route runner.
4.41's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think 4.41's close to 4.3.
Yeah, more like just like the long speed. I think it just took him a little bit to kind of get up to speed, but I liked what he was able to produce. It makes a lot of sense as far as getting somebody in the middle rounds that maybe if you add a little bit of weight to him, I think could turn into a really, really special player. And for Basil Tootin, wow, big time production. I mean, this guy was a home run hitter. And hey, when you have a guy like a Najee Harris in the backfield who's going to grind it out, get those tough yards, you want to have a complement like this guy who, on any given down, you can give him the football and he is liable to take it to the house.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, if they wait and want to go just kind of juice to go alongside someone to complement Najee Harris, I love Basil Tootin there. I mean, had a 20 plus yard run in 9 out of his 11 games in 2024, at least 5 40 plus yard runs. And also had a game where he had 18 carries for 266 yards against Boston College and 4 total touchdowns. I think there's also untapped potential in the passing game, only 23 catches. Somehow for a dude who ran a 4.32 only averaged 3.5 yards per catch, which seems kind of wild.
Yeah,
but going back to the Torrey Horton pick, I mean, back-to-back 1,100 yard seasons before he, decided to go back and had a bad season last year because after being healthy really his whole career, missed more than half the season last year with a knee injury. But it's hard to play man against him because he can run away from you on drag routes. He has legitimate speed there and also is a guy that I think is a high upside pick, not necessarily the safe pick, but is someone that you could see being that outside guy to pair with Lad McConkey and also just kind of bringing some more juice. I mean, I think for these couple of rounds 2 through 4, you're getting 2 of maybe the top home run hitters at their position with Elijah Arroyo and Basil Tootin. There's a lot to like about that. But
yeah,
how do you round things out? Because there's obviously some pieces here that haven't been addressed yet in some positions, obviously. This is how he did rounds 5 through 7. Round 5, pick 158, Zy Alexander, a cornerback from LSU. Then he finally gets the guard, something maybe waited a little long. Round 6, pick 181, guard Luke Kandra from Cincinnati. Then he goes with Kane Madrano, a linebacker from UCLA, with the next of the 6th round picks. Antoine Powell Ryland, an edge rusher. It's not getting that heir apparent at edge rusher probably in round 6. And then he ended up going with Tim Smith, double dipping at defensive tackle from Alabama. And with the 256 pick, 1 pick away from Mr. Irrelevant, he took Hunter Warler, the safety from Wisconsin. So as far as just how he decided to fill out the rest of this, David, I think we both agree. Waited too long to get a guard. Hard to say a 6th round guard is going to be someone that competes for that starting spot, which means there's a chance you have 2 of the 3 same guys there. But there were parts of it that I liked, including just as a whole, kind of hitting all the biggest needs for this team.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the draft in totality, like you get a great defensive tackle in the beginning. You get a fantastic tight end who can stretch the seam. You get a couple of home run hitters in the middle of your draft. And then you go to just kind of try to add depth to kind of each position group as you go down. I just think when you look at this draft, maybe wait a little too long to get an offensive lineman, also an edge rusher as well. Not, waiting until the 6th round, maybe a little bit too long. But the reality is you only got so many picks, and, you have to kind of set priorities on what you want to be able to address. And it was clear for Dane Brugler that the priority was getting Justin Herbert help.
And I think the thing is, too, is like, if you drafted an edge rusher earlier, right now you waited too long to get a wide receiver. If you had drafted a guard earlier, then you waited too long to get a tight end. So there's no perfect way to do it. And that's what, even in a draft class I really like, you start to recognize when you see this. I mean, it's hard to swallow, that being the only potential kind of competition at left guard, being a guy who played right guard at Cincinnati and just a 6th round pick in general. But the one that interested me the most, one I've seen Daniel Popper bring up, the 6th round pick, Antoine Powell Ryland, because you wouldn't think a guy with the 3rd pick in your 6th round is a guy that had 16 sacks last year and 25.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons, the most in the FBS. Also had, 3 separate 4-sack games.
Wow.
Smaller guy, not much of a run defender, some obvious kind of flaws to his game at the NFL level, but as a potential situational pass rusher to pair with 2 guys we know can defend the run very well in Tui Tuipulotu and also our guy Khalil Mack, one of the best ever at it.
Yeah,
I think you can make that work.
No
doubt.
doubt.
Developmental player at center would be my last note here. I think that just has a lot to do with this center class. We wanted him to address it last year. This year, Dane Brugler has 9 draftable centers as far as the grades he has. That's not very many, and a lot of those are 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks for more than half of those guys. So not a great center class. They might not come away with the long-term answer there, or at least the project that could potentially turn into that. But as far as 7-round draft that I've seen, as far as the mocks go, I like Dane Brugler's a lot, and I really respect kind of his draft opinions on it. So I think this is one to watch because there could be a couple of these guys that end up landing in LA. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for Fan Mail Friday, the last Fan Mail Friday before the draft. So hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnLAC. On Instagram at Locked On Chargers. We'll put out a post on YouTube as well. And just also, you can call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 and give us your 30-second Chargers question there. We also post the show to all of those places every single day, but you can make sure you never miss it by subscribing or following for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcast from. But David, so excited for what's to come. I'm sure we're going to get even more news as the draft keeps upcoming. So make sure you're back with the only daily Chargers podcast out here. And we'll be back tomorrow with Fan Mail Friday. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.